It's the Sports Biz Buzz, brought to you by Citywide Banks, and today we're going to talk about the fact that the NFL is going to broadcast a game online and online only. It's a game this coming regular season between the Bills and the Jags that will be played in London. And joining us to talk about it is a gentleman who wrote about it for the Wall Street Journal, Kevin Clark. Kevin, thanks for joining us.
Thanks for having me.
Sure. So, Kevin, trying to figure out, is this the NFL's way of putting the fear in God of the fear of God in everybody, fans, to let them know that not every game is going to be over the air going forward, and also to maybe the networks that hey, look, we're the NFL. We can go to any platform we want. You better pay us a lot more money in the future if you want to still be on CBS, NBC, the NFL Network, etc.
I think it's a definite warning shot to everybody to let everyone know that the future is going to be very, very different. That it's not going to be the same four networks in a room saying, I'll give you $5 billion, I'll give you $4 billion. It's going to be about ideas, it's going to be about platform, it'll be about reach. And so I think that this is the NFL laying the groundwork and getting everyone to understand how things are going to be, because now it's not going to be CBS versus Fox versus NBC. It's going to be Amazon versus those guys. It's going to be Apple versus those guys. It's going to be very, very interesting to see how that shakes out.
Kevin, this is Woody, and I've always believed, always, not since I was a little kid, but in the last 10 years, I believe that the Super Bowl ultimately will end up on pay-per-view. People are talking about the Mayweather-Pacquiao fight and what it's going to bring in terms of pay-per-view. Can you imagine what the Super Bowl would bring into the NFL if they were able to put it on? Do you think that's ever a possibility?
The Super Bowl, I think, is a far reaching star for them as far as pay-per-view goes. I think that they're not ruling out pay-per-view maybe in the next decade for regular season games. I spoke with an NFL executive yesterday rather. He was quoted in our paper today basically saying that they're not going to charge for the Bills Jaguars game because they want to see what the market is, but they're not going to rule anything out because they don't know what the internet companies want to do. If the best internet company comes to them and says, we have the best reach, we have the best platform, we have the best technology, but we're going to charge $3 per game, the NFL has to listen to that. So I think the internet companies have more power than anybody thinks, and I think if they all sort of band together and say, whatever happens here, we're going to charge a small fee or a large fee, depending on exactly what they're after, I think they could do it. So it's not out of the realm of possibility. They could be charging for regular season games here in the next 2 years.
Kevin, you're much smarter and more astute in regard to the what's going on in the NFL and its bargaining power with the networks. But I've been told that the NFL Network really doesn't make that much money for the NFL, and that's why they kind of moved those Thursday night games, half of them, over to CBS. That they're really struggling. I shouldn't say struggling, but they can't seem to really make the NFL Network work as they wanted it to. Are you hearing?
Maybe they ought to hire some better talent. That might help.
Ooh. Regardless of that last comment, I think that there's an issue really with the cable carriers. And what happened essentially is the NFL got carried by everyone, Time Warner and all that. But within the deal, they said they only had to have 6 games a year. And so as soon as they got carried by everyone, they pulled a bit of a switch and took some of those games, put them on CBS, which I think some of the bigger cable companies were upset about. So they're basically at the bare minimum of what they were asked to do in the cable contract. And I think that makes people very concerned. I think that if you're Time Warner or Comcast or Bright House and you're looking at these contracts and saying, am I really going to renew with the NFL Network? I mean, look what they did last time. Now, they have all the leverage because they still have those 6 games that are only on the NFL Network, and that is so huge. If any market, and it happened the first few years of the NFL Network, if any market misses an NFL game, there is a fan revolt, and it's not directed towards the NFL, it's directed towards the cable company. So I think they're very mindful of that. But I don't think the NFL Network, as you said, Woody, is a huge moneymaker for the NFL. I think they're trying to grow it. But if there's an escape hatch, and that escape hatch is selling rights to Apple or YouTube or Facebook for billions of dollars, I think they'll take it, and they would de-emphasize the network if that's a possibility. If they can put a lot of content on Facebook and make the same amount of money or more, that's not a bad option for them.
Kevin, a few months ago, an NBA owner, Mark Cuban, came out and said basically the NFL is greedy and that pigs go to the slaughterhouse. Do you believe with this move doing a game that's only going to be online, creating leverage, that they are getting too greedy, that at some point they might just go to the slaughterhouse, that this could cost them?
I think the one thing I've learned in covering the NFL is that every time the NFL does something to get more revenue, everyone says, well, they're finally overstepping their boundaries. Here comes their comeuppance, all that. And all that seems to happen, guys, is they just make more money and they get more popular. And so I just don't understand. People say there's a saturation point. Maybe that's true, but they haven't seen it yet. And I think they're very mindful. There's a lot of executives who are, have the analytics stuff out there, and they're just trying to figure out what people want. And they have not seen a saturation point. They're still creating events. They just created the Veterans Combine because people, somehow, people wanted to watch the Combine to begin with, which is just, guys in their underwear running in straight lines. Now they want to watch the Veterans Combine, which is just, older players doing that. So fans right now can't get enough of the NFL, and the NFL is giving them what they want. So, yes, I think the NFL thinks that wherever the games are, the fans will go.
Kevin, Les and I were just talking about whether or not we were arguing and disagreeing on whether the NFL should add 2 more playoff teams. And I said, yeah, they should go to 18 games. They should add more playoff teams. They should play until 1st of May because it's a lot more interesting than all the talk about free agents. And he kind of laughed at me, but I think I totally agree with you that there is no saturation point. People want pro football. They want to play fantasy sports 12 months a year. They want more games. They don't want less games. They don't care where it is. It can be on skywriting, and they'll watch it.
Right. I think one of the options that they would have, and I don't think it's being considered right now, is expand the season and then just really expand the roster. And that would address the safety issue, the health, the guys breaking down. I think if you had, 70, 80-man rosters and you had 18 or 19 games, I'm sure they wouldn't go to 18 or 19 right away. They'd probably go to 17 in the interim. But I think there are ways to do it. I think that the playoff game and the expansion there is interesting to me because I think you'll see when they do sell their digital rights, and that will be coming, I'm sure, in a few years, I think you'll see that sold off as part of that. That would be my guess. There's a reason they want that extra game. I've always been a little suspicious about that, and I think it might be because they're trying to sell a new package to whoever buys those digital games. So, yes, I think they eventually will expand the playoffs. It won't be this year, but they understand that again, games make them so much money, and until they see any evidence that fans are getting tired of it, they're just going to keep going and going.
Hey, Kevin, before we let you go, how can people find you on Twitter and whatever you're writing for the Wall Street Journal?
Yeah, WSJ.com, always. We're not behind the paywall. Sports is the only part of the paper not behind the paywall.
Cool.
And I'm at Twitter at Kevin Clark, WSJ.
Beautiful. Hey, Kevin, really appreciate your time.
Outstanding job. Thank you, Kevin.
Kevin Clark of the Wall Street Journal. Go read them. Thanks, man. We'll talk to you soon. All right. Well, that was interesting. That was really interesting. And brought to you, the Sports Biz Buzz brought to you by Citywide Banks, a family-owned, Colorado-focused business bank. 12 locations across Denver and Boulder.